All right, Mr. Clay's class, welcome to another wonderful week of school. And this week, we are going on a fantastic field trip. We've been working hard, haven't we? We've been doing our work, getting good grades, and today's the day, a citywide tour of San Antonio, Texas. I also have some breaking news from Principal Anderson. We have named Rose and Antonio our star students of the month. Give them a round of applause. Yeah! So you guys are going to go all of the amazing locations here, but Rose and Antonio, our first stop is going to take us to one of the most iconic San Antonio locations, the Alamo. And when we get there, you are going to go on a special tour all by yourselves with an archeologist and historian to tell you all about the Alamo, while the rest of you are with me as we walk around taking a look at the amazing sights of the Alamo. But that's not all. We're also going to go to places like Natural Bridge Caverns, SeaWorld San Antonio, the Whitney Museum, and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That's right, the San Antonio Missions National Historical Park. Today's gonna be full of history, fun, excitement, adventure. Are you ready?
Yeah!
Then there's only one thing left to do. Let's get on that bus and hit the road. Come on in, students. Antonio, Rose, come on, bring in the rest of the class. Huddle up, kids. Okay, we are at the most iconic San Antonio mission. Behind me is the Alamo, a wonderful cradle of Texas history.
This is gonna be so cool, Antonio.
Yeah, I guess, but what's so special about this place?
Okay, kids, behind me in 1836 was a big battle, including the likes of Davy Crockett, James Bowie, and right behind me, what were they fighting for? Texas independence. Their bravery and their courage helped withstand a much larger Mexican force.
Tell me about it.
Well, that battle didn't really end the way the Texans wanted. Unfortunately, that Mexican force was so powerful that the defenders were defeated. But their sacrifice and their stand right here on these hallowed grounds inspired the Texans to keep fighting for Texas independence.
See, I told you it was interesting.
Yes, Antonio, this place is very interesting. Now, what I'm gonna do, class, is I'm gonna break you up into groups. You guys, Rose, Antonio, you're gonna go with Mr. Alex. You are gonna go that way to see the barracks, and you guys are coming with me to check out the chapel. Now, make sure when you're with Mr. Alex, you ask great questions, because there will be a quiz later, all right? Let's go explore the Alamo. What do you say?
Okay.
Hi, my name's Alex Rivard. I'm the Director of Education here at the Alamo. I've been here for a little over 2 years. I have a dog named Brisket, and I love breakfast tacos. Are you all ready to get going on a field trip?
Yes.
Let's get going. Y'all, right now we are standing at the southwest corner of Mission San Antonio de Valero, or the Alamo, and I want to give you an idea of where everything else is here, what's still here, what isn't. The western wall, which y'all can see right here, that's where most of the people who lived here, indigenous people who lived here with their families, lived in these buildings on the western wall. This western wall would have cut through this entire city block right here and gone all the way to that 8-story hotel that we see more than a full city block away. The northern wall, up there, the top of the fort would have gone through the lobby of the United States Post Office and Courthouse building a few hundred yards in that direction. It would have crossed what is now Houston Street before rejoining with the Long Barrack. The Long Barrack, that structure right there, is one of our 2 remaining historic structures. It's that one we can see right across the street over there. That is the oldest man-made structure in the state of Texas. It was built in 1724, and next year we'll be celebrating its 300th birthday. Go just past the Long Barrack, and you will go to the Alamo Church. That's the building most people know as the Alamo. It's got the iconic arched parapet. That's one of our 2 remaining historic structures. The Alamo Church was never completed during the mission period, so they never actually performed Mass or went to church inside. The arch parapet that we all know is like the iconic Alamo Arch, that wasn't added until after Texas became a state. It was added around 1851 when the United States Army was using this site and American soldiers were stationed here. To talk a little bit more about the battle and how that history unfolded, I'm going to take you all to the top of the southwest corner, and we can continue our conversation there. This is a great place to talk about the beginning of the Alamo siege and what ultimately becomes the Battle of the Alamo. This is what San Antonio looked like 187 years ago. More than 2 million people live in Bexar County today. At this time, less than 2,000 people lived in San Antonio. It wasn't a large city. This is a small town out in the middle of nowhere, and less than 2,000 people live here. The old mission, the Alamo, is not even part of San Antonio at the time. This is a small former mission on the outskirts of town, across the river from this tiny town of less than 2,000 people. It had taken control of San Antonio away from Mexico at the end of 1835. The Mexican government is understandably not happy about this. And so the president of Mexico, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, marches more than 800 miles through the coldest winter on record with an army of over 2,000 soldiers. And they head towards San Fernando Cathedral. That's that building right there in the center of the image. San Fernando Cathedral is only 800 yards in that direction. We could walk there in about 10 minutes. It's very close by. The Mexican army makes that their base. Most San Antonians leave town. About 150 people stay behind. They come into the walls of the Alamo and they make this their base. Santa Anna raises a red flag of no quarter from the lone bell tower at San Fernando Cathedral. That indicates to the 150 people who are here at the Alamo that they have no options, no rights to negotiate. They can either unconditionally surrender or they can be put to the sword. William Barrett Travis, the head of the Alamo garrison, orders a single shot fired from the 18-pounder. They fire at San Fernando Cathedral and the Mexican army. That kicks off a 13-day-long siege that we know as the Alamo Siege. Cannon fire lobbied back and forth between the Alamo and the small town of San Antonio just across the river. That would all culminate 13 days later in the Battle of the Alamo, which is less than 90 minutes long, a battle that takes place here on the grounds we're standing on now, a battle that lasts less than 90 minutes, but one that would ultimately be really impactful for Texas' struggle for independence. Y'all, right now we're standing over this model of what the Alamo would have looked like in 1836. We just began our field trip right over here at the southwest corner. The morning of the battle, it is dark. There are about 200 people within the walls of the fort. They're surrounded by about 2,000 Mexican soldiers. An enslaved man named Joe and William Travis, the head of the Alamo garrison, are sleeping here in the Trevino house. They are alerted by a sentry that the fort is surrounded and the battle is about to begin. They go from here to the north wall. This right here would have been in the lobby of the United States Courthouse building right over there. You'll notice the fort is kind of shaped like a large L, and the Mexican army knows that the top of the L here is the most vulnerable part of the fort. Santa Anna sends 3 waves of troops here at the north wall, and this is the first place the Mexican troops start to get into Alamo Plaza. Travis falls here at the north wall within the first few moments of the battle. Joe, who's fighting alongside him, goes back to the protection provided by the Trevino house. He barricades himself in there for the rest of the battle. As Mexican troops come into the plaza from this direction, they take control of the cannon at the southwest corner, the gunade, and the northwest corner here. They turn those cannons around. Now they were aiming inside the fort. Some of the Texan troops do try to escape. They are killed by Mexican cavalry, but most of the fighting happens out here in the middle of Alamo Plaza. Many of the Texan soldiers, realizing their fate, go into these rooms of the long barrack. These are the rooms right behind me right now. The Mexican army fires the cannons at the doors to the long barrack. They kill many Mexican soldiers and Texan soldiers in the process. And the final moments of the battle are fought inside these rooms right behind us right now. Clubs, fists, knives, bayonets, fought entirely in the dark. The battle is over before the sun rises. But 6 weeks later, just outside of Houston, Texas, Texas would win independence in the Battle of San Jacinto. And that would give birth to the Republic of Texas, a country that was independent in its own right for 9 years. But the history of the Long Barrack, this building right behind me, doesn't end there. I've thrown 2 important years at y'all so far, 1718, the founding of the mission, and 1836, the Battle of the Alamo. I'm gonna throw a 3rd year at you right now, 1903. That's when 2 very important Texas women enter this story, Clara Driscoll and Adina de Zavala, really important women who lived in San Antonio a little over 100 years ago. They met in the lobby of the Menger Hotel about a block that way, and at that time, the only 2 buildings that still stood were the Alamo Chapel and the Long Barrack. And they took the very first efforts to try to preserve these buildings, which is something that we're trying to do still today. They're the 2 that get the state of Texas to take ownership of the site and to start the initial historic preservation efforts that we're continuing to this day. So if you look closely at this building behind me, you'll notice the walls are about 3 to 4 feet thick, but also if you look really closely, every so often, you will see holes drilled into the side of the building. San Antonio has really hard water. Right now we're only 13 feet above the water table, but also when these buildings absorb water, it can cause the salt within the limestone to crystallize, push its way out, and kill the limestone. Anywhere you see one of these holes right here, we have drilled into the side of the wall, inserted a camera to find areas where the limestone is eroded, and we inject the building with a lime-based grout that we have developed, a future stone that expands out, finds those empty areas, so we can keep these buildings standing for generations to come. All right, y'all, right now we're standing in front of the Alamo Church. I've thrown 3 years at y'all so far. 1718, the establishment of the mission in San Antonio, just across the river. 1836, the Battle of the Alamo happens here. 1903, Texas starts to preserve this as a historic site. Time for our final year, 1845. That's when Texas becomes a state, is annexed by the United States in December of 1845. Texas becomes the 28th state in the United States. Shortly after that, they send American soldiers to be stationed here. This is a quartermaster depot for the United States Army. I just want to point out a few details about the front of the church that kind of illustrate its multiple histories. You'll remember from the beginning of the tour, the church was never finished. Mass was never performed in this room while it was a mission. By the time the battle comes around, it still does not have a roof. Well, when Texas becomes a state and American soldiers need to live here, the US Army says, we need a roof on top of the old Alamo Church. They add a gabled wooden roof, and to cover up that wooden roof, they add the famous, iconic Alamo arch that we see today that most people associate with the site. If this had been completed as a church, there would be no Alamo arch. There would be bell towers on either side, kind of like San Fernando Cathedral across the river, or like Notre Dame Church in Paris. A few other interesting details about the front. If you look right above the door, you will see the Alamo's keystone. It's kind of a point of symmetry for the entire mission. If you look closely, you'll see 3 letters intersecting in the keystone. A-M-R. You're exactly right. Those are my exact initials in order, but that's just a coincidence. That's not what they stand for. Ave Maria Regina, or Hail the Virgin Mary, or the Queen Mary, a not so subtle reminder to us that this was intended to be a Catholic church. If you were to go to any of the other San Antonio missions today, they are all still used as Catholic parishes. Church happens in them regularly. This is the only one of the San Antonio missions that is not still used for church in 2023. Antonio, Rose, Texas students, thank you so much for joining me on this walking tour of the Alamo grounds. I hope to see you here on another field trip soon. But every time you come here, I hope that you know that this is a really important part of your history, and it's really important that when you come here, you see yourselves represented in that long, over 300-year history at this point. So hope to see you on another field trip again here soon.
Did you guys have fun today at the Alamo?
Yes.
Yeah, where did Alex go?
Where did he go?
You didn't remember? It's Remember the Alamo. How'd you not remember?
Oh.
Did you guys see inside the collection center?
Yes, it was awesome.
Oh, did you get to go inside the chapel?
Yes.
It's so beautiful here at the Alamo, but I've got good news. Well, I've got good news and bad news. What do you want first?
Good news.
Bad news.
He wants bad, you want good. Let's start with the bad. The bad news is our time here at the Alamo is come to an end. But the good news is we've got more of San Antonio to see. So what do you say we go to our next location?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We got to get back on the bus. You ready?
Yes.
All right, let's go catch up with your classmates. Go on.
Okay.